Hi everybody, welcome to this week's Word Day. Basically, what I want to talk about is something that I'm very guilty of, or I was very guilty of. God is working on me with that. I'm going through the whole sanctification process with this, but I didn't know there was a Bible story for it. I didn't know there was a passage in Scripture for it, which is doesn't make sense because everything needed to sanctify everything about us is in the word. But I just guess I didn't expect it to be there. I don't know. But what is this thing? I don't even know what to. Okay, let me just describe the scenario. You know when you're going through a really hard time and you feel like you cannot take it any longer and you just it's just hurtful, it's insecure, it's not stable, it's not what you thought it should be, and your only way of escape is hope for the future. There have been times in my life where I had just hopes and dreams and aspirations for the future so much that I wanted to ignore and just not have the present so that I could dive into the future, because the present didn't have much to offer. The present wasn't where I wanted to stay. I didn't believe God could do anything with the present. I didn't believe that the present could be valuable, could be enjoyed. I just wanted to dive into the future because that's where all the promises God had for me were fulfilled. That's where, you know, um, that's where greatness lied. It was always somewhere in the future. God is going to do this for you in the future. You are going to walk into this, and it's not a bad thing. It's great to expect greatness for your future, but at the expense of living and trusting in God and living faithfully in the now, well, that's not really worth it. So, what's my biblical reference for this? Well, I started really thinking about this, even though I had dealt with it for a long time, when I read First Samuel chapter 8, verse 4 to 10. And it's basically a story that we all know, and we all know the lesson of the story. And the story is when Samuel was old and his sons had grown up, but they weren't as respectable as he was. And the elders of Israel looked at him and were like, there are no future for this country. We need plan B quick. So they go to someone, they're like, okay, for real, you know that your sons are not the greatest and they cannot rule this nation the best way. You're gonna die soon. So we need a king. We need us somebody that can judge us, because clearly, you know, it's not going to work with your sons. And come on, everybody around us has it. So we need a king. And when someone heard this, he was devastated. He went to God. He was like, I can't believe, they're rejecting, you know, my service to this country for so long. I've dedicated myself to this country, and now they're rejecting my leadership. And he was just so broken, and God was like, trust me, they're rejecting me. More than they're rejecting you. They're rejecting me, and they have done it since I brought them out of Egypt. That's just how they've been. They've run away from me and run to idols loads of times, and this is just one of those times. So that caught my attention. I really was like, wait, pause. I never noticed this. And what I didn't notice before, when I read the story and learned this lesson that is usually attached to the story, which is they wanted to be like other nations, and we shouldn't want to be like other nations. We should want to stand out. There were sacred group of people that were God's chosen, and they wanted to conform with the environment, and they shouldn't have wanted that, and we shouldn't want that either. That's usually what I take away from that message, of what preachers bring out of the message, which is true. We should definitely not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind, and that is biblical and that is true. But there was something else that I realized, because before I read that, I had read Deuteronomy chapter 17 verse 14 and 15, and that passage really was like, wait, what? Now, what was it saying? You guys can go and check it out after you watch this video, or while you're watching this video, if you really want to validate what I'm saying, which is great because you should. And that is when in Deuteronomy, before they had entered the promised land, God was telling these people, okay, you're going to the promised land, and eventually you're going to say you want a king like everybody else. And when you say that, get the king that God chooses for you, and make sure, it starts by saying, make sure the king is not it's not a stranger, that he's part of the brethren. It goes, that's to also where it says that the king shouldn't have many wives, which is something I said a lot, but everybody doesn't really pay attention to the first bit, when it says, oh yeah, you guys are going to want a king when you get there, and you're going to want a king. You're going to even say that everybody else has a king, so we want a king as well. So when you do that, this is the right way to get a king. So this made me realize that them wanting a king wasn't the problem, and the fact that other people had a king and they used that as a reference also wasn't the problem, because God knew that was going to happen and was okay with that, and he was more concerned with what kind of king that they would put at that time than the fact that they would want a king. So I was like, okay. So if them wanting a king wasn't the issue, and if you already knew that they would say they kind of want a king too because everybody else has a king, what is the problem here? And I realized that the problem was in verse in 1 Samuel chapter 8 verse 6 to 8, and that was a time when God was telling Samuel that, okay, it's not even about you, it's about these people continuously idolizing, or running to idols and not believing in me, and running away from my leadership. And that's what it's about, because it has been happening since you came onto the scene, and that's how they've been treating me. And this comes back to what I was saying before. They didn't want something bad, they didn't want something that God didn't have in plan for them. If they had read the books of Deuteronomy, they would know that God would had plans for them, and for the type of king that they should have. So that wasn't the issue. The issue was the fact that they idolized the idea of the king, and they didn't trust, and they had unbelief in God in their present situation. They felt like they had to take care of things with their own selves, because they didn't by their own selves, because they didn't trust in God and his ability to take care of them. And I think even for me, with the reference to what I was saying before, that is the problem. When we feel like we want something that is even biblical, it's even in the word that we should have, but it's not so much because we believe in what God has for our future, but more so because we do not believe in him being able to take care of us now, and we idolizing what's in our future. How many times have you idolized your independence in the future, your the standard of living that you would have in the future, the spouse that you would have in the future? These are not bad things. These are things that God hasn't planned for most of us. But the problem is when we idolize these things, and when we do not want to appreciate God and follow God's will for us in the futures, because we're rushing and we're struggling to live in the future, when we don't want to live in the now, and we don't want to enjoy and trust God in the now, because we just sincerely don't believe in him being able to take care of us now, and we believe that the only hope lies in the future. And yeah, that's what I have to say. Don't feel, don't operate in unbelief and call it faith. Don't hope for. I used to call it faith. I used to say I'm believing God to do what He has promised me to do, when really I was doubting God to do what He was doing. I was doubting His ability to complete the work that He was doing now, and I was lying to myself that I was just believing that He had great things in store. And really, I just didn't believe in what He was doing now. So that is my challenge to you. Look into your life, look into your personal life, your social life, your academic, what is the word? Any area of your life. Is there any part of you that longs for something in the future for the wrong reasons? That longs for the blessings of God for the wrong reasons? Are you doing something in the name of belief and faith when it's really an act of unbelief, if you really think about it? That is really what I have to say, because I know I've done this a lot of times. I have wished for great things that might seem so holy and acceptable, and they were probably part of my future anyways, but I wanted them so bad, not because I believe God could do them so much, but because I really didn't want to be in my now. And it's important not to settle for your now. It's important to have faith in what God can do, but it's also important to have faith in what God is doing now, because remember, your now was a future and now it's a now. So either, I mean, that future that you're hoping for will be a now, and will you be able to enjoy it when it is a present and no more a future? So yeah, that's what I have to say. God bless. Love you. And yeah, check out my last video. It was an original song called Stay. It was a Farewell Friday web episode. So see you later.